Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and today we're joined by two extraordinary guests. We have the privilege that, and I don't have your exact title, but former Sergeant Pattie Brassard is joining us here. Welcome, Pattie.
The important title at this point is Micmac tribe shaman.
Oh, okay, Micmac shaman and klanmother Karen Lucyk macdonald.
You did that wonderfully.
Karen. And Pattie and I have the privilege. I mean, you can comment on it because I commented on it one way, that we were named in QAnon before it was taken down, one of the forums there, as having provided in that series of programs that we did on the EMP false flag from North Korea over the United States, that EMP bomb, that through your reporting and on News Inside Out, we exposed that.
Yeah.
That QAnon acknowledged that as, evidentiary exposing of the cabal, end of quote. And so I just want to acknowledge Pattie for that.
And the fact that they run NASA and we watch them actually skewing the data live.
Yeah. So
prove the falsehood.
Yeah. Now, people have different theories about what QAnon is, but still, that was a verified exposing in real time, and people can go to News Inside Out and look at that. And that was way back before any.
I know who Q is, period. So.
Oh, good. So maybe you will share that with us at some point. Now, this program is really coming back to what has been the focus of the last couple of programs, which is Karen macdonald's step forward as a 5G educator who has been targeted quite visibly with a directed energy weapon, circumstantially in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which prohibits military attacks on unarmed civilians, in retaliation for her efforts to educate about 5G. That we were saying prior to the program appears to be an attempted planetary EMP genocide, 5G, G for genocide, in camouflaged as a telecommunications upgrade. So I'm really going to now step back and turn the conversation over to my two distinguished guests as we'll go through. This will be a multi-part program, but the first part is really to go through more of the evidence here of what's beginning to surface around the 5G rollout, that those who are attempting to educate the public about what the 5G rollout really may be are being targeted and attacked with directed energy weapons. So Karen and Pattie, I'm turning it over to you for your comments. So
okay, there's two different types of 5G. There's safe 5G, and then there's an unsafe 5G, which is actually a weapons platform. It's the weapons platform that they have been rolling out. And a lot of people are mad at Trump because Trump is pushing the 5G agenda, or seemingly pushing the 5G agenda. But understand this, the only way we could actually get a look into the technology that they are out there installing was to bring it out to the public forum. Prior to that, the technology companies that worked for the cabal that were rolling this out had the information about what was in the boxes they were putting out there hidden from public being able to view it under Corporate Privacy Act. By Trump pushing it out, it got us the ability to get in there and actually look what they were putting in the boxes. We've actually gotten a little bit further with that here in the United States, because some of the first places they got away with installing the tech was around police stations and on the roof of fire stations and whatnot. And the fire crews ended up in the hospital. So that launched an immediate lawsuit, which we won because of the physical effects it had on the fire crew down here in the United States. So we've already got, in certain states, rolled out bans against this technology for that reason. So we are, making headway on that. Now that down here in the United States, that technology is open for scrutiny to the public eye due to what Trump did. He seems like he's for it, but he does this a lot. Seems like he's doing the bidding of the cabal, which basically gets them off his back for a bit, and then they don't realize what else he's doing. So it's sort of seemingly appeasing them while also having another agenda that's on our side. So that's what's been going on with that. As far as this picture of Karen's, I can see like the whole right side of her, that neck, as I'm looking at the picture, the right side, that's the kind of thing from a 5G exposure. However, the other of it, she and I were talking about this. That's caustic. Something grabbed her around the neck again. The last time it was a Dracos, and the slime that's all over their skin burned her neck and left handprint. This looks more like some sort of claw that had some sort of caustic substance on the surface. Whereas the right side of the neck is burned consistent with a 5G. The left side and that thing in the front looks like something grabbed her.
That's actually the one from 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So to put that into perspective. And that took about 2-3 months to clear. And we came up with some, different foreign virus bacteria I would classify under biological warfare. Like when we do scale or quantum biofeedback or genus biofeedback, ours were showing, viral and pathogens like a PPA AI on there. So that's from about 1.5 years ago. Again, starting when I really started coming out with some of the 5G, because they were putting it into Saskatoon. I phoned the city of Saskatoon, and I had them actually remove the smart meter back to an analog at that time at the place I was staying in under an hour, and my dad. And I started, spreading the word, so a lot of people were getting all their smart meters taken off, and we were putting shields up, and that was quite successful. And then now all of a sudden the city of Saskatoon, and I've got all the documentations, and a lot of times I'm behind the people that are sending the letters to the city of Saskatoon or to the mayor or Cynthia Block or whoever it is. But bottom line is that as a klanmother, we put a proclamation in for, Wi-Fi and weapons free and EMF free zones back in 2013. So even on top of the Hague Court and the International Criminal Court, this still is a violation of that proclamation as well since 2013. But in here, we have seen, despite putting the shields up and everything, they are refusing and taking absolutely no responsibility. So when I've met with Cynthia Block and why are you putting this 5G out? Why are you as counselors allowing this? And they're like, well, we don't know. I don't even know about it. And I went, well, you've got your sticker all over the city of Saskatoon. It's your people installing it here. I'm watching it. I've got your van, putting these things out. And, they're trying to abdicate or pass the buck, saying that it's not our responsibility. It's okay because it's from, it's it's federally approved. So, they wash their hands, and they are still culpable, and they're still responsible. They're still accountable, and they should still be all charged, because it would not have gotten through here if someone had said no. And I've been, doing this for over 2-3 years, 2016, since we really started getting in about the 5G and contacting people like Mark Steele, Sasha Stone, Professor Curtis Bennett, yourself, Dr. Catherine Horton, all the different people involved in here. And I've been on numerous programs, so has Pattie. But I mean, this has got to stop. I mean, it's about stopping them at the core. And if, as you said, we've got to put some international suits into the courts, then we need to do that, because, you know, you can tell friends and say, like, I got this all from, like, Steve Adler and David Wolf, right? The cacao, the shaka, everything like that, the mushroom, shaga tea, whatever we're doing oils, it's not fully stopping that. And this time, it's
as long as Canada is still run by Trudeau, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm sorry.
And these are the types of things too, as we're hearing through there. Trudeau isn't Trudeau. If Trudeau's a clown, what the hell is going on here? I'm so tired of all the deceptions. People thinking they have this and that and gold, and this one's fake and this one's gold. We need a total full disclosure. I mean, this is getting to be absolutely ridiculous, And I mean, you can't even have faith in any of the systems, because they're doing as much deception. And it's all about, to me, about truth and getting the truth out. That's what I'm about. But there's some more pictures that we could look at too, if you want to.
No, sure. I just want to mention something about the Canada. On the date of the second program that Karen and I did, on that same date that program was released on 5G and 5G of what's happening here in Saskatoon, the government of Canada released its authorization specifications for the rollout of 5G in Canada in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And it was on that same date. So that is happening now as we speak. 5G is being authorized here, and without any studies.
None.
Without any studies at all. And in fact, there is prima facie evidence and a reasonable doubt that there are health concerns, so that the precautionary principle is on the side of that there would be studies before something would be rolled out. So the decision taken by the government of Canada is highly questionable. Now, there is a national election happening in Canada on October 21st, 2019, and both of the campaigns are right now in high order. I mean, not both of the campaigns, but the Liberals, Trudeau, the Conservative, Scheer. I call it sheer madness because I haven't seen Mr. Scheer, who's head of the Conservatives, saying anything against 5G. It's only when you get to the Green Party and to the NDP, the New Democratic Party, that you have political leaders who would even open the door to give you 5 minutes to listen to you about 5G. Over to you guys. I just wanted, because Pattie raised that issue, I just wanted to note that.
Wow.
And people have mentioned that in the United States, the main issue now is the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which prohibits any government and any authority from raising health issues in telecommunications rollouts, which is like, who put that nail in America's coffin, and why can't that be changed? That is the main stumbling block now, a 1996 law that was put in at the behest of the telecommunications companies. It seems like we're dealing with the tobacco industry, not squared, not to the power of 5, but to the power of 10 raised to the power of 10. Over to you guys.
The tobacco industry is not a good analogy. understand the government paid the tobacco industry to take the hit. Tobacco doesn't cause cancer. The nuclear fallout that is biologically uptake and concentrated in tobacco is what causes cancer. Because prior to playing with the bomb, it wasn't a problem. The government paid the tobacco industry to take the hit on that. I still smoke, but I don't smoke consumer products. I buy tobacco that's grown indoors and free of nuclear content. That's another one that they don't want people to know about. As far as the 5G goes, we've managed, a lot of people have won lawsuits regarding 4G, which is your cell phones and everything else. The whole issue of how many people hold their cell phone up to their head? I don't. I use a long cord and I keep that thing away from me when I do use it. Of it causing brain damage and all sorts of other things. And basically 5G is weaponized 4G. It's a higher frequency and more power behind it. However, you get an exponential issue. Going from 4G, you get better distance because the waves are longer and they travel farther. Going to 5G, you get shorter waves, don't travel as far. That's why they got to put more of them in. Mm-hmm. But it's also more power, more damage. So, basically 5G is weaponizing 4G. And 4G has already been proven to be bad. If you put anything living beside it, either a cell phone or even an internet wireless router, it dies. Period. That's proven. And there's no debate about it. So now you're going to roll out 5G? I mean, come on. That's weapons grade.
Right. What was, could you let the audience know and tell us what was your interaction with these 5G antennas that are being rolled out in Saskatoon right now?
What was my interaction with them?
Could you tell us about them?
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, we've got some pictures I sent before, but I couldn't put them off here too. The towers started showing up here. They were doing the cables and the fiber optics and stuff like that and laying some of the stuff out in 2016. And at that time, one of the guys from the city of Saskatoon, one of the managers, came up and wanted to know if I would approve of also smart meters. And, I had that smart meter, like I said, taken off and the analog replaced. They also at that point wanted to know if I would approve of smart water technology, the smart water meters. And I said, absolutely not. I've studied this, educated it, and they're nothing but weapons, and they're going to shut off people's power. You're microwaving and doing scalar wave technology here. And Pattie and I have shown on other previous shows too that we've got a mini CERN synchrotron here. So this is a portal site, like a mini CERN site. So underneath the circle drive here is now leaking with the CERN light source synchrotron material as well. So combine all that. So then all of a sudden, maybe about 4, 5, 6 months ago, whatever it was, I started noticing, and we've got towers all over. I've been trying to educate people about, just the dangers of that alone. And I've been, vocal. Like I said, I've been putting emails out, Facebooks out, talking to people on and off. I mean, I'm quite well known in the arena here and international. And then I started noticing on Deefer Baker Drive about 2-3 blocks away that, all of a sudden there's a tower up one day. And I've got people saying, we don't know what happened. We don't know if they're coming in with helicopters at night or what, but also sometimes these are just there overnight. And I've got people from Saskatoon, Warman, whatever. All my friends are starting to call me and they're scared because they've been watching my Facebook for years. And they're going, one of those towers is just coming up in Warman, or, all of a sudden people are getting headaches. They're noticing things very, very different. They're twitching. They feel like they're burning. Nosebleeds, things like that. Fragility, dogs starting to, seizure. And again, we know that these are all neurological effects of these weapons. And, I don't want to say it's a communications tower because it's not. It's again, this type of thing is secret, militarized, armed for the residential technology. It is a weapons. It is a radar type of thing that is used to microwave people for crowd dispersal.
We got the documentation from the person who invented this, okay, and his patent, and we posted that. It's weapons tech, undeniably. That's what it was created for.
And in here, you know, when you start getting these towers down the street, and then again, it's not just towers, it's into the light standards. So the light standards, to me, these are like assassin towers. Like, why not just have, you know, a super soldier up there with a turret? These are their surveillance methodologies with LED. They're getting wired up. And then when you start seeing these towers, this is, for example, if you don't know what one looks like. I mean, some are disguised, some are not. But this is like 2 blocks from me showed up. All of a sudden, there's robberies at the little feisty goat next to it. In the area, we've got people with being macheted a couple blocks away. Actually, 2 people that I know within less than a mile. And, you know, abductions. You know, someone tried to take a 15-year-old. I've never seen the amount of increase, whether it's 5, 10, 20% in the Saskatoon area right now, that's changing behavior. But
let me put this in perspective for people. Normally, street lights are 220 volt sodium arc lights. That's the you know, how they get the bright light. Because of these new 5G systems they're putting on them, they have to reduce the bulb in the lamps to an LED that uses almost no power. And all that power is going into, that used to go to the bulb, is going into the 5G broadcast.
there's that.
Otherwise, they'd have to rebuild the entire grid that powers your street lights, because most of that power is now going into the 5G broadcast box rather than the bulb. That's why all of those that you see, those new ones that got the 5G on them, they got LED lights in them now, not the original sodium arc lights.
And one of the things, like we mentioned on the last show too, all of a sudden I started seeing cameras up in front of it. Now they're telling me again it's for, you know, crowd surveillance. The police want to monitor the, you know, street there. And I went, what? And so, you know, I went right up to them, as you know, and I told them I was going to film and get this all for evidence. And I said, I want that thing down. And they did. They removed it within probably 48 hours after I talked to them. But I mean, I've been on this since day one. I've been there when it was in the snow. I've got all the barcodes. I have everything. These are weapons. And I've been putting it out, like I said, to the city of Saskatoon. I put it on Facebook to the Saskatoon City Police because I'm reporting a crime in my neighborhood.
So you have a harder time up in Canada. So down here in Massachusetts, things like that are a direct violation of the Articles of Confederation. So unless these states want to leave the Union, they're breaking the law, and we can take them to task for that.
And I think that's what people have to do, you know, and that's why I'm saying, even though you might have your Sask power, and again, I know when that's flashing, and actually in the last week and a half, it's gone, and again, it's been flashing for months and months, which means they can take it over at any time. Now it's actually live, and it's got, you know, another cycle on it, but they have their City of Saskatoon stickers all over this stuff. Okay, so they're not, you know, innocent by any stretch of the imagination. And these are solarized so that if something obviously goes down. But like I said, people have got it, again, they got their sticker.
Smart meters are a different thing.
Yeah.
If you understand how, you know, cable works, where you get a digital signal over an analog line, RF frequency communication and talking in your head and things like that is like a digital signal over the power grid, which is analog. That's what, you know, smart meters are. That's how they remotely manipulate smart meters and can turn off your appliances or turn off your power remotely, things like that. But that's not the least of it, because technology like that basically turns the entire wire system that runs throughout your house into a giant antenna grid to do voice in your skull and all kinds of other really nasty weaponized technology on the population. That's what it's done. That's why they're doing it.
Now, this one was also interesting that, you know, that was a year and a half ago when we did that one on here. This is the one that we did actually on June the 10th. So, I mean, there's even severe changes from that infrared to this infrared. And the only change too is, you know, what's been going on in here. I mean, these things can also penetrate inside as well. And that's the one thing, is that with the microwave or the very short waves, you actually start heating up the molecules. It's destroying the cells. It kills the oxygen molecule. That's why you're also seeing a lot of the trees are turning brown. Actually, it's very...
That is another issue.
Exactly.
Okay, I got to say this and get this out to everybody so they really understand. Everybody's touting nuclear technology as the green option. It is not. It is actually what's causing the global warming that we actually are having. Every nuclear plant that makes nuclear rods, in the process of refining the uranium to be put in the rods, they use CFCs. They are exempt from the CFC law. Each plant that manufactures nuclear reactor rods pumps over 800 tons a year per location of CFCs into the atmosphere. That's what destroyed the ozone. Now, because of that, what was once UVC reading of 0 is already now up to 50, getting through the atmosphere, and it's cooking everything.
On top of it.
That's what's causing the major ground heating and everything else, and ain't nobody talking about it. There's even very few people who are taking readings. But that is the true cause of cooking. And because the worst of the ozone being gone is the southern hemisphere, is where it started first. That's why, Australia and Melbourne and whatnot down there got the nickname of Melanoma City.
And I think that that's a really important point as well. I mean, we have access to all these, like magnetic machines, free energy machines, call it whatever you want, Tesla type stuff, which even our biofeedbacks kind of pick up a little bit on. But we have this stuff and technology available. And to have even the city of Saskatoon that Pattie and I know have been leaking for over a year. They've not put any warning out to the public. In fact, even to get radiation, Canada, since Fukushima in 2011, you haven't been able to get any readings. So all the readings I have to get are actually courtesy of the U.S. Army military and their stuff that Pattie's able to access.
There's been an explosion in the building of cyclotrons underground in a lot of places. Yeah. All of them leak nuclear content. It's a byproduct of the collisions that they do.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that either.
Yeah. So when you can...
And there's no shielding like you have even on a reactor. Not that it matters. The reactors pump stuff out every night. They have to. If they didn't, intermittently purge the content in the reactors, the reaction would slow down and the plant wouldn't run. They don't talk about that either.
And yet we've seen it here. We've watched in the evening where things are just coming off the U of S campus and stuff like that and just blowing through the city. But
that's again, even worse, the colleges.
Yeah.
The colleges have no regulation at all. And they have open top reactors. Case in point, I'm downwind from URI in Providence. Every morning, the first student that gets to the building basically opens the door, reaches in, turns the lights and the exhaust fans on, and vents the building, closes the door, walks away for about an hour before they can come back and go in there. And all that goes up in the atmosphere and ends up on me. And I have a radiation gauge here. It goes up every morning.
Yeah. So one thing too, maybe if we go through some of the other slides and stuff too.
Could you tell us what's going on here in this slide, Karen?
Well, I'm looking at even from like last year to this year to the thermograms and stuff like this. And I actually brought in our heat seeker because I've been dealing with Professor Clifford Bennett there in, as you call, British Columbia. And then this one I got was actually from Clifford Garreau out of here. And so he was a former RCMP forensic specialist, and also he was trained in, of course, CFB Suffield, right, in biological weapons. So he's right up my alley. Like, I could speak to him. I'd like speaking to the choir, thank gosh. But again, these are some of the changes that you can see that, when things touch you, whether it's plastic material, nuclear material, 5G, you'll see changes as well. Where that handprint was. So that was just correlating. That was like last year. That's all I had to play with. But this year, we got the big guns in. with their thermal imaging cameras. So that's just showing some of the difference in the temperature gradients. And again, that sat there for months and months. I felt like when Fort McMurray blew, and I was one of the ones to go gather some of the agents that they used, which was the sodium hexafluoride that blew all over, as you think, northern Saskatchewan, but into Takakoop and into the reserves. You know, they sat there for close to 2 months, Alfred, and they were like pieces of cornflakes and stuff, because this stuff doesn't integrate right away. You know,
it's a fire accelerant. That's what they use to cause the burning of the forests up there deliberately. They basically wanted to get the indigenous tribes out of that area.
Yeah. And again, it's contaminating. Like even the last couple of months, we've had a oil spill in the North Saskatchewan, so all of that water system is now gone. We're also having all sorts of spills going into things. We've got reserves now that totally have no water. They're having to bring in around me as well. This particular slide was just when I came back. I was taking some pictures right after the May 17th, I'll just call somewhere in that incident, or accumulation of it, that my scalp was literally coming off in pieces. And it was coming off my ears. Overnight, I was just like literally had wrinkles. I was so dehydrated, so gray. This is still 3 weeks later, almost 4 weeks now, I guess, since I've been coughing up material. You know, whether it's viral, bacterial, it lowers the entire immune system right down, which I'm still trying to, you know, knock off. I still have the side effects of whatever this is, you know, and even your throat and raspy. I mean, we've been sounding like frogs for a little bit. This again was taken in Banff at the Fairmont Hot Springs, but you can see the actual burning and etching in. And it looked like it was actually in, like it was put on a George Foreman grill, because it was very striated. You could definitely see lines of demarcation on it, but it was raised and coming up like an actual burn, you know, and that one, you could really see it, but it did, like everyone was, you know, kind of, I don't know if you could joke about this, but saying it looked like Zorro got me, like, you know, scarred off. Pattie's got...
when you lose the ozone, in conjunction with the UVC that's now coming through, which actually cooks things, and the weakening electromagnetic field, we're also getting gamma radiation coming right through as well. Just bear that in mind. And this muddies the water for the bad guys. And trying to point to one item that is causing something when it's actually being caused by multiple things.
This is multifactorial, as some people think, but there's multiple reasons why this is going on. So, I mean, that was probably the saving grace, was to be actually in Banff for a week in the mineral springs, like getting regrounded, right? And having the least amount of Wi-Fi, and going into, they were actually, where I was at a sacred lake up there by Banff as well, to where the original tribes and clans met.
But, I mean, you're out in the open, and one of the weakest points of of our, you know, almost no ozone, and getting hit the hardest from outer space, both UVC and gamma radiation getting through the weakened shield. So, I mean, you get away from one and you walk into a, you know, smorgasbord of other effects. Because there really isn't any place to get away from it, which is why I designed the enclaves the way I did. Because that's going to be really the only way to get out from under this stuff.
This again was one of the other photos that we took. It's my selfie attempt about a month ago. And there again, you can see when you bring it up, you can actually see it starting to scarrate.
That's from contact, and she's got it under her chin too. That's contact with a caustic substance. So we have one of the ET's contractors. They sent them out to threaten her for a second time to shut up, clearly.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
That's one of the enclave houses. You can either, that can be built separately or within the confines of an enclave. These can work standalone or in group. That's why the one on the left has those two extra oval things. Those are elevator and staircases where you would run the power and the fiber optics for the underground lighting up to the dome. Those are like pillars that would go up through the floors and up to the dome. The other issue with this is the bottom 2 floors, which are 50 feet high inside, they're also pressurized. And this is another unique aspect of bringing the growing area up to 2 atmospheres and right around 21% oxygen. That is basically returning to how prior to these DTs showing up and Gaia's original making of humanity, before the moon showed up and caused the tectonic stresses and made the mountains and changed the weather and everything. That's what Earth had: 2 atmospheres, 21% oxygen. So what we're aiming to do is get back into that sort of an environment indoors, because it promotes healing. And we've actually got a Japanese scientist who actually set up a lab underground and did that. He pressurized it to 2 atmospheres and 21% oxygen, and he's proven that stuff grows like crazy. He's got one mini tomato tree that in less than 2 years it grew to cover the entire ceiling, and produces more cherry tomatoes than he can reasonably deal with. He has to actually sell them because it grows like crazy around, and that's what he's doing. He's got it underground, pressurized, fed with fiber optics. That's another thing. They've got a lot of what they call barometric treatment, which is now becoming more widespread in hospitals, but they're careful to only pressurize between 1.3 and 1.6, and they don't do the high oxygen content because they don't want the healing effect that can happen at those settings to become public knowledge. So now, they're burying that data.
Now, is the concept behind this to be safe spaces from the fact that the planet has lost its ozone layer and other protections?
Yep.
Or is this safe spaces because of the 5G plus the ozone layer, or what is the impetus or vision?
In the design of this, all the power panel cables and everything to the wall, as well as your internet and everything else, are all in UV shielded channeling, which is installed in the walls, as well as the boxes where outlets stick out and everything. So you don't have any of the EMF in your living environment.
EMF free.
I see. So this is saying that
the domes over the top block both UVC and radiation. The type of glass that goes up there and the coating on it blocks that, plus generates power.
So this is envisioning that there are going to have to be conscious efforts. This is sort of like building arcs. This is like a modern day arc.
Yeah. And the outer walls, the outer walls of these have an R factor of over 150.
Well, are people going to be able to venture outdoors from these?
You will. They'll have to be like airlocks, but 2-stage airlock. But the point is, you're growing all your food, and you can even set up, say, the 3rd level for animals with, grow crops there that they can eat. If you wanted to do it that way, there isn't really any need to go outside. And the key thing is, it's really not safe to be outside anymore with the weakening electromagnetic field we have. And that's going to go on until such time as we actually get the magnetic pole flip, and that's not immediate, and it tends to bounce back and forth several times before it settles back down. That's going to be a very, very dangerous time to be outdoors.
Now, also, I've heard some people talk about a geographic pole shift. What's your thoughts about that?
The South Magnetic Pole is going to go back to where it originally was, which was about 100 miles north of Taggart Lake in Alaska. That's where it's heading. And that's a return to where it was originally. And I've put up pictures before that show that centered on that point, you can draw a 100-mile wide path around the entire globe, and that's where all the ETs originally built all the megalithic structures, with that as a center point, because that's where it was.
And so what sort of time frame do you have for all of this process?
There's a lot of things going on, and Gaia has tried to slow down now. She was pushing ahead rather fast to make it happen. She slowed it up as best she can now. I don't know. Things are kind of up in the wind right now, but it's best to, be safe rather than sorry. There's some other tectonic issues going on, especially in the American Northwest. It's part of the plate up there that most of, all of Washington, part of Oregon, and the western part of like Ohio and whatnot, that whole part of the plate is turning clockwise, separate from everything else. And pretty soon it's going to break. There's just way too much stress there for it not to put a new seam through the U.S. American plate. It's actually being jacked up on one end from the Juan de Fuca sliding underneath, and it's twisting clockwise as well. It's going to break. And that's going to be a horrendous event when it does.
That was sort of foreshadowed by the New Madrid, the New Madrid, Missouri quake.
That's another whole fracture zone. It's one of 4 from there heading east. They've had mud flood events come out of there quite regularly. Because it's in the middle, and you get a lot of fluids and whatnot that don't go out volcanoes that build up under there, and then you have what's called mud flood events. Matter of fact, there was, in the United States, there was a major mud flood event, back about 200 years ago, which they have completely wiped from the history books. We've got a lot of photographic evidence of this and everything, but you don't read about it in any history books. This is the kind of thing they do. They constructively edit away history. And there was a lot of technology in these older buildings and things that you have these big grand mansions that seem to already have been here when the colonials came over with these big ass straight chimneys which let the heat go right up. And then they had these, metal electronic deals that went in there with 2 big globes on them. That's because air used to come down the chimney, be heated by these, and be pushed automatically through the house. I mean, you can go back to the 1700s. You got these big mansions with antennas on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-electronics. What are the antennas for? Right? There's a lot of hidden history out there that people just don't know about, and they did their best. The cabals and the covens did their best to wipe out of the history books.
What are these maps that you're showing us, Karen?
These are actually some of the ones that Pattie's put out as well too, like the cascading.
Yeah, where ground is going up and down, where it's twisting, because I keep track of all the ground motion sensors, and this shows the problem graphically.
Now, how can people follow you and follow your tracking of these things? Is there a place they can go online, or?
They are online, but most people are blocked from.
Oh yeah.
At this point, a lot of these places, the only way you can sign up to get this data, if you weren't already legacied in as being able to access them. Now you got to fill out a form, and it's got to be approved by a cabal-owned corporation to give you access to it now.
I see.
So it's not that they can't, but it's a matter of how public are they out against these folks as to whether or not they'll get access.
Now, I just wanted to ask you, some of the of the data out there. For example, there's a military supply website called deagel.com, DEAGEL.com, and they were looking at trying to project population levels in the U.S. and they have one level, one projection which says that in 2016 the population was 324 million, and there's a corresponding GDP associated with that. And if you go out to 2025, there are various projections. One of the projections is 64 million or 54 million. And that's could plausibly be as a result of the 5G rollout, Fukushima radiation, the chemtrails, the GMOs, a lot of the other causes of the culling. They call it the Great Culling. Have you looked at some of that data?
They don't even have to attack it that way anymore. They put so much GMO food out. They're doing similar to what they did to all of Japan. Japanese males can't reproduce anymore. There's 4 genes, DAZ, D-A-Z, 1 through 4, which they can hit via GMO food delivered into your system. That actually switches them off, and that means the males can no longer reproduce. They can't produce any offspring. Well,
here is, it's a strange dialectic when people talk about Donald Trump, and I know that we may have different positions about him, but let's just look at the phenomenology and then we can talk about the interpretation. Because in this past week, I just want to get the exact date here. Today's Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. In this past week, Donald Trump signed an order that eliminates all of the regulations that governed GMOs in the United States. So wouldn't you say that he is an agent of the genocide then?
I don't know the logic behind that, other than to get it, get privatized data out in the hands of the public media. Because you can't solve an issue or even bring an issue up in court if the data is held under the Corporate Privacy Act.
Well, look,
that's the kind of things we're having to work around.
No, but look, that's one. I mean, I don't want to get into a dialectical argument here, but he has, number one, authorized 5G. Number two, he has eliminated the all regulations around GMOs in the United States. There are now no regulations around GMOs, and corporations and other entities can experiment and manufacture with regard to GMOs as they please with no labeling. So, I mean,
they're doing it already, Alfred.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to make the point that he seems to be an agent of the Great Culling, not someone who is trying to intervene on the side of.
I'm going to make this statement, and you can take it for what it is.
Okay.
He is making things better for these cabal types here because they're the ones that are staying with this screwed up mess that they made. We are not.
Oh, okay. And where are we going?
Another duplicate. This one with them on it are going into permanent quarantine, and they're getting all their tech and toys taken away from them.
I see. So that this is, I remember
It gets me upset that they're putting so much effort into the idiots that are getting left behind.
So this is really
And that goes with upstairs too, because I get in regular arguments with them up there.
Yeah.
Over this issue.
So really, what you're saying is that all of this
all I can say is wait and watch, see what happens around the 4th and 5th of July, because things are going to change radically.
Okay, but all of this increasing dystopia is part of the separation of worlds, and that is that they'll be going into either an increasingly harsh and dystopian 3D and
they're staying at 3D.
A more evolutionary 5D.
Most actual humans, because we're only 1/3 of the people that you know when you're walking around outside during the day, only 1/3, out of every 3 you meet are actual humans. The rest are clones or something else, soulless types or skinwalker types. Because there's so many other levels of Earth with other races that are just as bad as these folks, here it's not feasible to actually evacuate all the bad guys off this planet. So we've just made another duplicate, and they can have the mess they made. But we're going to take away all the tech from them, and they ain't going to be able to leave anymore. They ain't going to have anything to leave with. They're going into virtual quarantine where they can, rape and murder and abuse each other for the rest of their existence.
Okay, and is that process kind of happening on universal over control, or is that kind of an automatic
There's things
process?
that have gone down which are supposed to be kept quiet. Things like another whole duplicate of the Milky Way popping into existence right beside our own. We've already evacuated all the gin off of Earth and out of all the vaults and everything, and they got their own planet. Things like this are already moving along. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that most people just don't know anything about. And as far as me going hardcore after the bad guys, and they basically upstairs told me to stand down. Other than rescuing children and such, which I still do, they don't want me taking any more of the bad guys out. They've told me to stand down. Because it ain't going to matter in the long run.
And to focus on Ascension, is that the kind of the basic rule now?
Yeah. And the actual humans are already getting 4G upgrades because you can't just pop into 5G unless you're already a light worker or a light warrior, because you'd actually drive insane everybody up there, or that's up there already.
So
where most communication is done mentally, and people don't have control over their own minds currently. And that's a major problem. And that speaks to the programming and everything else they've been put through.
Yeah, now that leads to a conundrum. And the conundrum, for example, is what should be our approach in the 5G area? Are we really just kind of alerting people to, hey, there's an ascension on, really focus on that? Is that kind of what we're doing?
That, and I mean, the whole issue with the enclaves is not just building a safe environment for the remainder of time that you're here, but also giving you a mental picture of what you want when you get to 5G. Because it's going to be your environment that you live in when you get up there is going to be primarily entirely up to you. So this is like also living in the enclaves is also like a learning lesson.
So are these enclaves in 5D?
Yeah, they already exist up there.
Yeah, so this is what 5D is, basically. Is that
I
what
mean,
you're saying?
5G is not without issues as well, but it's nowhere near like down here at all.
Yeah. So just to make it sure, because those two sounds are very much alike. You got 5G, which is the fifth generation of
energy weaponized
and then
energy communications. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got 5D, which is the fifth density, which is more light-oriented and love-oriented and outside of time-space. Outside of the third density, which is more time-space defined. And 5D is more light and love defined.
I've actually given peeks people that I've captured stuff going on upstairs around the sun and whatnot of 5D, because once in a while we get apertures open up and I snap pictures of it, and you can see there's less stars because up at 5D, the 4D environments don't exist. You can't interact with them. So there's actually less stars out there.
So is the survival strategy vis-a-vis 5G then to really just focus on 5D? Is that basically the most efficient?
Try and get out of the worst of the crap that's still going on here for the period of time that you're still here.
Yeah.
Those that die, and again, I don't have the same opinion as they do up there. Those that die basically get healed during the interim and transition immediately. So in a manner of speaking, the ones that are down here and suffering and dying, they're actually getting early graduation in a manner of speaking.
Right.
That's why they're not in any rush to put a stop to it. Although I think that's deliberately, in my opinion, that's deliberately being cruel, but that's me. I have issues with the whole experiment to start with because I went way back in time to when this whole thing started. And I know who started it. And it wasn't the bad guys that started it, which is another really sad thing to say, but it's the truth of it. And I'm pretty upset about that because I wanted to put a stop to it at the beginning, and I tried to, and they prevented me from doing so.
Could you talk more about that?
All the way back to the race that created the Dracos over in the Dracos galaxy, because they're not even originally from here. It was bird beings. And so you blue avians are not good guys. They're offsprings of the race that created the Dracos to start with. And they and the light beings that started the SO experiment told them to go out there and conquer everything. And most of the Greys, pretty much except for the Slipsy Gray, the Dracos created them to start with. So if you look at this grand mess we've got out there now, with the Dracos galactic-wide, conquering group, this whole mess was actually started as an experiment by the good guys, which pisses me off. And they're being slow about it, ending it, kicking the can down the road, which means more people suffer, and that means they need more corrective healing and everything when they get out of this environment. I'm not happy about it at all. The grand scheme of things, I'm really not.
Pattie, how do you see? What's your take on this kind of grand vision? Karen, what's your take on this sort of insights that Pattie is sharing?
Again, a lot of this stuff too, I agree with Pattie. It should not have occurred in the first place.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
I agree with Pattie that a lot of this should never have occurred in the first place. And there's been unnecessary suffering that didn't have to be. And as a mom, but as a nurse, I mean, even what we have sustained, like my children and myself here, there's no excuse for it. Never should have occurred in the first place, ever.
This started off in one small galaxy by one group, and it spread like a virus to encompass multiple galaxies at this level and spread to 2 entire other levels of creation. That's how bad it got before they decided they're going to call a halt to it.
Is this what they call the Lucifer rebellion?
No, that's what actually made it worse here. The so-called fallen angels,
Oh, yeah.
who, again, a lot of these beings, even beings like Toth, who are that whole group that were rejects from the world Tara. Tara was pulled through as a living planet to feed or power the phantom timelines. We were supposed to be next, and then there's a planet named Gaia as well. And the goddess of that planet was playing a role as a fake Gaia here and doing a lot of screwed up things. You know, I mean, the majority of the work I did wasn't here on Earth, but out there, and untangling the whole mess that they had made of things, of this whole fake reality that they hijacked.
Part of what I see, though, as the positive thing is that we need something in the interim, as Patty was saying, you know, and when you've got things, and I've been hearing, you know, they're going to be put into another, 3D quarantine. We'll be moving to 4D. We've got 5D. They've got, I don't know, there must be like 400 some exoplanets up there sitting alone, ready to intervene and stuff too. But we need something in the interim here. And however long this is going to take, that's why I wanted to see this, whether it's the Care Bear Project, I don't care what it is, the Enclave, the Noah's Ark, whatever it needs to be. These arcologies have to be developed because we require something. We need the DNA restored, everything.
There's over 300 what they call bioships up there. They're, planets that are, separate from their sun they can drive around, that are basically hospital ships. And this could all, and right now, be over at the snap of a finger, because it would probably take them less than 15 minutes to evacuate every actual human off this planet, and put them into a healing environment. They could get this over with in a heartbeat anytime they want. And the longer they delay, the more it pisses me off.
There's so much stuff going up there. I mean, that's just from the esoteric space for secret space program kind of stuff.
I was showing everybody everything. That's why they crashed the Cassini into Saturn, because I was doing show and tells and got them really upset. But
the bigger thing is that, like I said, these are the bloodlines that they're trying to genocide us. They've already targeted my girl, my boy, our children, Pattie stuff. All those bloodlines are being eradicated, even like yours when you were mentioning, Alfred, back to the Cuban and the original tribes that you have and what's going on there, and the original indigenous people.
During the Atlantis sinking event, caused by the Martian Lemurian hybrids, we lost 10 entire tribes, and then the Queen of the Dracos, or the Queen of Britain, whichever way you want to look at it, paid and hired the Spanish to come and invade, and we lost 3 more tribes in Florida, Tennessee, and over to the Mississippi. They wiped out every man, woman, and child. I mean, doing away with the tribes, because we used to be able to, do the ritual and time walk, and put a stop to a lot of the crap they were trying to pull. The whole thing has been to kill us off.
When you're dealing with stuff too from the space, like as in, what Patty was showing in here, some of these, we've got to have these facilities. I mean, for the UV, A, B, and C alone, the ozone and the atmosphere, on top of all their space wars added.
They've tried pulling fake ET invasions 5 times now, where we've gone up and basically wiped them out. And I got pictures from inside the the fighter craft and the ships in orbit and all of that. Yeah. Including pictures on the ground of the cleanup of the ones that crashed into the ground, and we had to get ground crews out there to clean up the mess before the public saw it.
Right.
That was the new one you were talking about, though.
Yeah, I. What do you think about the rule? All of the tools of law here of our activating city councils, are activating you know
It's a
city
joke.
councils that are still awake or awakenable, or public.
You're playing in a crooked game,
I
and
see.
all of these things that you talk about, they all work basically under Black's law, correct? So you're playing by the enemy's rules.
The
By going to the
enemy's
court
rules.
Point blank.
So that's really not going to work.
No.
So when
So-
we're
We do things that are above and beyond their playbook.
Oh, okay, so what playbook, by your view, is going to work?
Galactic law.
Galactic law. Now, what the Galactics say, I mean, and this is just through interviews like with the Regional Galactic Governance Council that came down to Stanley Fulham, who was a lifelong.
And there is the rub. You see, the bad guys are technologically advanced enough to fall under the rules. The basic run of humanity is not, and that's a problem. We don't actually. Very few of us actually have any say in the overall game plan.
Yeah, but the Regional Galactic Governance Council, who are the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the
Council of 12, who actually had one of the enemy races as a member of it, namely the Zeta Reticuli group, who were major players with the Anunnaki. I mean, it took almost 2 years for me to get that information and all the data that went with it up to the council to get them the hell out of the council.
Yeah.
They were a major security leak.
No, right. And they have been letting it known, and the most recent interview that I did was just a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. With a contactee of theirs of the Council of 12, who said they still want to land at the UN and begin to clean up the environment of Earth and begin to, do a whole.
This planet could be cleaned up in about 12 weeks.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Now, what they did in October of 2010, they made contact with Stanley Fulham, and he went public in June of 2010, mm-hmm. and the council did an overflight over New York on October 10th, 2010, and we did all kinds of interviews with him, and by December of 2010, Stanley Fulham was dead of a fast-acting cancer. They killed him with a bioweapon.
Well, bear in mind, those fires out in California that raced through and destroyed all those homes and everything were done using DEW weapons. And they also have a bunch of Yeti working with them who can, shoot fire from their fingers that contributed to that, and a lot of the forest fires. But bear in mind, those residences all had underground tunnels hooked to them. Most of the beings that lived there survived, but they were willing to come out publicly. And that's why, the bad guys decided they're going to try and wipe them out, because they were willing to come out in public. Basically, they're constantly trying to find the date we're going to pull something so they can preempt it or shut it down. That's why our security is getting an awful lot tighter, and there's a lot of things going on we just don't talk about anymore. We're not going to give them any date and times of anything anymore. Period.
Okay.
We just don't talk about it.
But just in terms of a process, and that is that you can look at a process and you can say, okay, between 2020 and 2025, at 2025, there might be an energy portal opening up that, is a propitious time. And so, because all of these are system stuff. So
one of the things that's changed, if you understand all of, do you know what the name, when I say all of Laniakea, do you know what you understand what that means?
Yeah, that's a term from the Urantia book, isn't it?
Where basically the Milky Way is one little tiny dot of all of it. At the
Yeah.
center is the great attractor.
Yeah.
And if you understand, this is like a neural pattern that connects, all the galaxies and everything.
Yeah.
The being that actually is in control of all of Laniakea has returned, because I guess he was, see, of the 3 levels that are screwed up like this, the top one has another group that's working to clean that up. We've been working to clean up this lower one. We were supposed to meet in the middle and join forces to clean out the middle one. He was going up there trying to do some cleaning up. He's back. He's taken control, and he says he's going to do something different, which basically took all our former plans and dumped them down the trash and left us kind of hanging. And he ain't talking. He's doing his own thing. That's why things are going to, I've got some gifts of how things are going to go a lot different than we originally planned, and what the council had on the playbook. There's a lot of that I'm not even going to discuss. But it ain't going the way they thought it was going to go either.
Well, but it's all for the positive, right?
Creating a whole nother galaxy park beside ours to start taking some of these select groups off and move them to is just, the opening move.
So where do figures like the Buddha, the Christ, where do figures like this fit in what you see this way?
The Buddha group, they were another race from, Asgard, basically, the inner earth, or there's a lot of different names for it. That philosophy is not human, but it does work and gets people, humans, to ascend. I can't find no fault with the Buddha, Buddhist religion, if you want to call it that. The Christus group, the Christ group, they started out good. However, in the end, they threw in with the 22 races of the bad guys. And now I've already told them they come back here, and I don't care what they told me upstairs. If the Christos group, fake Christ guy, steps 1 foot here on this planet, I'll kill him.
Why?
He's hanging out with the blue. He's hanging out with the Blue Sphere Alliance, and he wants to bring back another whole God-type fake religion. These folks never had any real right to control us in any way, shape, or form, ever. And matter of fact, most of them did damage to the original humans who were superior to them, and screwed us over royally time and time again, including creating other races based partially off of our DNA. There's currently 6 different hybrids of humans here on Earth.
You're talking about the original Lyra-based humans. Is that kind of your baseline?
The original humans weren't based from anywhere else. Gaia made them. Her mother's planet, Eden, which is in dimensional quarantine, is in orbit around our sun, in Earth's orbit, on the opposite side of the sun, in dimensional quarantine, and there's still gates that go there. Her mother's planet has an island on it called Avalon. That's where Gaia made her original humans after her mother. She asked her mother to get this planet brought here through the Sun Gate, and this planet was for her and her kids. However, she made agreements to help a lot of other races out because Gaia is not what you would call a valid student teacher. She's never been upstairs other than to visit her mother at level 12 up the real tree. So she's winging it. So she did a lot of help to other races out there, get their kids to graduate and ascend. and now they owe her. That's the Council of 12. Council of 12 provided seed stock for Gaia to make her additions of humans. However, she used her own DNA and the DNA of the ancient progenitors, which were in this rock when it was brought here through the Sun Gate, to make her humans more like herself. Whereas the mother made the Elven race, it's her second group. Gaia is the only survivor of her first group who could, at level 4 and level 5, step off the planet up the real tree. That freaks out all the bad guys. That speaks of abilities they don't allow to exist, which is why Eve's first planet got wiped out, and why when she made a second race, she made the Elven race, but lower energy and lower abilities, so that her kids wouldn't get wiped out again. And she had to go for a long while before she found somebody, namely Gaia, the dean of the Milky Way campus, to even give her another planet to have kids at all. That's what the Red Kachina was about. There was more than one of them in more than one galaxy. Anything the bad guys thought could possibly, potentially become a threat, they would use that to wipe the planet clean. And we destroyed that, and it was up in orbit. I locked it in place when the Civil Legion went in and killed the red plasma entity that was running it, and I got pictures of that.
Now,
however, because of the creative ability of humanity, you've got people like on Facebook, that whole Nibiru countdown group. They can actually cause another Nibiru to manifest, and that's what we've been having to now fight. These people got so much invested in the study of history and the other times that things been brought into play, that they can actually, manifest it again. And that's what I'm trying to put a stop to. But bear in mind, humans are going to get what they imagine hard enough. And they need to keep that in mind. The more negative stuff they believe in and put all their energy into, that's what they're going to get. And they need to stop that.
Well, you yourself are saying that it looks like there's going to be a bifurcated future, and that is one future which ascends into a 4-5D of light and love-based reality, and another one that goes into
and then they go in the recycle bin and end up in 5D anyway. But they're going to get that experience that they're energetically pushing for.
Yeah.
That's free will. There is no way around that.
Right.
Even the folks upstairs, it's really, that's part of free will.
How far are we from that bifurcation in your judgment? Or is that bifurcation happening now?
All the higher frequency type people are already getting 4D training already now. And that date I can't give out even if I knew the exact date. I know something pretty spectacular is going to happen. It's either the 4th or the 5th of July. And that's using numerologically to track down the when of it. And even Trump's actually openly said that the 4th is going to be something spectacular, the level nobody's ever seen before. So he's even given hints to that.
Now, when you use the word we, who is the we?
In which context?
Well, you said no because you're kind of using an interdimensional we. When we encounter the interference with humans in the creation process. We were just talking about those issues.
Humans are capable of creating their own, I should say, let me qualify that, fully restored humans are capable of creating their own entire galaxy and existence the way they want it. And that's scary even for the Council of 12. Technically speaking, the Council of 12 doesn't want humanity fully restored at all, because we scare
does
the
not.
other Patesians out of them. We scare them. We have godlike abilities, naturally, originally. That's why we never had any tech, because we never needed it. We wanted to go into another planet, we just went there. We didn't need ships or any of that. Even the gate system, which I've gone and repaired, we didn't even need that. That's for people who don't have any ability to step through to go to other places.
Right. Now, it seems like you are taking personal responsibility for very fundamental aspects of the Earth system, like the gate system.
Yep.
Who do you conceive yourself to be in terms of?
I was sent down here to do a specific job. I've done
Which
that
is?
job.
Yeah.
Shut down all this, parasitical stuff on humanity, and then give them the proper way to exist here. However, these kind of things already exist up in 5D, not as complex as mine, but they do already exist up there. I think mine's better, but that's me.
Right. Now, how can people find out more about your insights and your mission and really?
I had it all posted, but I got in a mix-up with Facebook, indirectly, legally, and they wiped out my account. So that's why I had to create a new one. And if I stop putting it all back up, they'll just wipe out the one I got now.
Well, why don't you just create?
Because that'll prove positive that my new account is me, which I've been trying to keep, under wraps. That's why I have the account guy, a shaman, now on Facebook, was to keep them from just wiping that account too.
I see.
I do have groups, several of them, including Pattie's Open Data group, where I post a lot of stuff, as well as my new account.
Okay. I was just going to also add, there's radiation graphic room.
That too, with the radiation issue.
The EMF, EMP stuff, 5G stuff goes into radiation graphic room. It is put on Pattie's Open Data group. I post throughout all my many Facebooks as well, that information that goes through. And there's also an evolution of the human race that we use too. Yeah. And some other.
And it's a real old one, PLB Fukushima Truth, which has all the actual truth about the Fukushima mess and how it was actually deliberate.
What I would like,
the fact that it's still putting out.
Yeah, what I'd like Pattie to maybe address a little bit is to why these are so important. Like, when I was saying whether we can get one up here, what my little Care Bear project, whatever it might be, and then Pattie gets one, we need them replicated. But if Pattie could go in, why it's so important, that's not just glass there. That's not just a biosphere. It's just not just Epcot Center. It's not just a Bucky Fuller, geodome. They are so important because they need multiple types of glass, not just lead glass and things like that, which are going to be kept secret. These are not for public release how they're being done.
I'm not giving the full plans on how these things go together.
This is national security. But the importance of why, just a hint of why they have to be done, Pattie could address in generality. If you could, maybe, Pattie.
Once the electromagnetic shield's down and you're standing on the surface outside of one of these, you're dead within 12 hours. It's that simple.
Could you say that again? Once
the electromagnetic shield comes down during the pole flip, if you're not in one of these environments and you're standing out on the surface, you're dead within 12 hours. You might as well be standing out, on the surface of the moon with no spacesuit. It's that simple.
Is the pole shift going to be put or triggered or put into action on the command of some entity or group?
Gaia's in control of that.
I see.
And the rate of the switch, which adds another complication to it, which means it's going to, originally she planned to be, do it pretty nasty and wipe out all the bad guys in the process. That's why The two magnetic poles are moving at different speeds. Such that now, if you picture a magnetic pole going through the center of the Earth, it doesn't go through the center anymore. It's offset, so it's increasing the wobble, which means when it goes, there's going to be the quakes, the massive waves, the whole thing.
Yeah.
When it does go.
And so
coincidentally, you remember the recent mega quake that they had off the coast of Indonesia?
Okay.
That's on a direct line of the travel path of the South Magnetic Pole.
Yeah, it's just monitoring everything. I mean, everything's being monitored. Seismics.
If you follow the track of the South Magnetic Pole as it's moving, it goes right through the center of that quake. That's the facts. And it's only going to get worse.
That's where they're tracking.
And the North Pole is moving faster than the South. The North one's at like 50, almost 57, and the South is moving at like 46.
So
this is 57 what?
Miles per hour, and the South is moving about 46. And by the way, with the South Magnetic Pole over the ocean and not being blocked by ice, the ley lines are getting recharged, and that's causing all kinds of other havoc as well. Which is why I put all the blocks down on the pyramids and everything else that these idiot ET races created. Because they're not good for humanity. They're good for their control matrix, and that's about it. And a lot of light workers got really PO'd at me when I cut the control cables that went to the pyramids in Egypt and then put massive lockdowns on them. They didn't like me doing it, and it's tough because they're not good. They're not the original pyramids that were built as the shield for Earth. Those, when they pulled that Atlantis event, blew up from the inside out. We actually paid 10 grand for a group to go in and get passage in to actually videotape the inside of one of our original protective pyramids from the inside, which predate the ones in Egypt. The ones in Egypt are a cooperative effort between the Martians and the Anunnakis that built those. Not good people. The whole Christian religion, once the Christos group sold out to the bad guys and helped to destroy Tiamat, that's been a mind control, large crowd control system. All your religions, basically, other than Buddhism, are nothing but crowd control methodologies.
I think that's why it's really, really implementable.
I mean, I've actually got the chart, that have all the 3-letter agencies and everything in it, and it's all, the top of it's the Dracos. I got the actual hierarchy control document. It shows where, all these different religions and the 3-letter agencies, both ours and overseas, and where they fit into the grand scheme of it.
Is that changing, or is that just only going to change with the?
That's what the light workers and Trump and everything else are, behind the scenes taking down. That's why all the indictments and everything else. And I keep telling him that they need to stop making some of this public, if only to get people's frequency where it needs to be. And the longer they kick that can down the road, the less the aggregate frequency of the remaining humans gets. They're getting, desperate and disheartened and everything else. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah, i.e., if we're moving toward the separation of worlds, the basic mechanism between that is expansion of consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, and frequency of vibration and frequency of consciousness, and that's something.
And the sooner that the truth of all this crap comes out to the public, the better off they will be. And the more easily they can transition to 4 and the healing and the learning, I think delaying it is a bad thing to do. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there are many false flag operations which are occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I understand from, if I step way back and try and look at it from the deity that runs all of Lanakea, the suffering and the dying of people, I can see how he views that as irrelevant. But bear in mind, a lot of these gods and goddesses that run, you know, up the scale of things, a lot of them have never, or so long ago, incarnate that they just don't have the feeling of those who are incarnate down here in this mess. They don't have that grasp of the reality of it and the suffering that's being inflicted, and so they don't see any real push to end it right here and now, because they could, and I know they can. So it pisses me off that they don't.
One of the things too, maybe with Donald Trump's recent, again, second visit to the UK and stuff or whatever, the representative, and this is where it gets so convoluted, right? Is that really Queen Elizabeth, the representative? Is she on or off the planet? Is this a Draco? Whatever. There was apparently a surrender to him and to the alliance, of which he's apparently a member of, right, Pattie? And again, non-human. You know, so if they're Altarians and stuff like this, and that has turned over, then there has been a surrender, which also means the stuff can be seized, properties, illegal proceeds, whatever, things like that can be done. And
you want to talk about some laughability? All the courts are basically piracy ships under the former control of England. They no longer have any rights at all, which is why if anybody that pays attention and looks at all the flags in the White House, all the gold fringe representing the Admiralty courts have been removed. They have no valid legality here anymore. And all the fraudulent stuff they've been doing for quite a while, there's 4 states now that we've actually had the U.S. Marshals go in on behest of free people, arrest the entire police station and all its personnel, the local court magistrate and the circuit court judge, and put them behind bars for fraud on multiple counts. That's beginning to happen already down here. 4 states so far. And if they want to try and push kicking me out of this house, Massachusetts is going to be number 5, because I'm the one that's going to push it.
You know,
that's how serious it's getting. We are going back to original galactic law and common law here on a piecemeal basis.
Well, it seems to me also you're proceeding under natural law.
Mm-hmm. But there's some basic, rights that come even just under things like the Articles of Confederation of the United States that are broken every day. That alone is enough to take judges and magistrates down and put them in jail and up for treason. And if the person that they crossed over is somebody like me who's military and had, did the thrice oath, we get to decide whether they even get a jury or whether they just get killed for treason. That's Part 7 of the military justice book, Part 7, Part 21 of the USMCJ. And whether people understand it or not, the United States is under martial law, but much like when we're going to war, like with the missile defense system, where are we? Level 1 through 4. Just like that for the military-industrial complex type stuff as well, as far as martial law, and we're at level 3 now.
Well, hasn't the
there,
U.S.
but it's not public. We don't have military in the streets yet, but that's on hair trigger.
Hasn't the U.S. been under military martial law since the end of the Civil War?
Pretty much, yeah.
And the law of 1871, which established the District of Columbia and put the U.S. under the hegemony of the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
But
here's the thing. All of those actors who played president were all direct blood offspring of the Queen of England.
Exactly, and under the law of 1871, it put the U.S. under the hegemony of the Vatican and of the City of London, and you had the presidency, the office of president of POTUS, that comes directly down. If you look at Manly Palmer Hall, The Secret Destiny of America, the office of POTUS is a reinvention of the office of Pharaoh. It comes directly from Egypt, and they resurrected it in the office of POTUS is the office of Pharaoh.
Yep. That's why, although Obama didn't fit under the rules and regulations of the United States to be POTUS, he was a nephew to Queen Elizabeth. And beyond that, he was actually a reincarnated of Akhenaten.
Well, there's also research that he is the grandson of Adolf Hitler.
That too. But bear in mind, the Anunnaki, aka the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, they were the ones that pushed and backed Hitler from behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, because Hitler. Well, there are a couple of versions. One version is that Hitler is the half brother of King George VI and King Edward VIII.
I mean, do you understand why the Illuminati, the Rothschild group specifically, are so against humanity? Do you know why?
Because they are draconian hybrids.
No, they're Anunnaki.
Yeah.
And back in the days of Egypt, when we got rid of the pharaohs, it's because humanity and a bunch of other ET races that were down here at the time joined in with us, humanity, and we kicked the Anunnaki right off this planet.
Yeah.
That's when all the gates and things got buried and or destroyed, and the Rothschild group and everything. They're bloodline descendants from, they're hybrids, but they're human Anunnaki hybrids.
Right.
Well, and all your Vatican were, Anunnaki and Draco. I mean, that's the Anunnaki part is the elongated skull, which is why they wore the fish hats originally to hide all that and everything. The elongated skull group, that's your Anunnaki.
Yeah, that's basically, you can say that it was a remote directed energy weapon that they made Angela Merkel shake in public a couple of days ago, because there's research showing that both she and Theresa May are direct descendants of Adolf Hitler as well.
Well, I mean, there's also another issue with
meaning that they're Rothschilds,
with Kuru.
Yeah, sorry.
These groups, there's other issues with Kuru too, and are cutting off their supply of children's blood. That they're having a hard time. And well, adrenochrome is like a drug addiction. That's not the really bad part. It's the Kuru.
The cannibalism.
Could you tell us more about Kuru? How do you spell that?
Kuru. It's a wasting away disease that you only get from cannibalism.
Huh.
Matter of fact, the Hillary Clinton you see out there now is not the actual one. That time when you saw her collapse into the black SUV and the Secret Service men, they actually rushed her to the building next to her daughter's apartment. There's actually a medical facility in there, a high-end, cabal group medical facility. They transfused her with living blood from a living female child, drained her completely, and then added nanotech in and brought Hillary back around because she was dead.
Oh.
This is the tech that they have. However, you see all these people walking around with, like they showed that one of them had the boot on. They said that was to hide
probation
the tracker cuff. No, that was actually hiding a wound that it had festered and the flesh was falling out of from Kuru.
It's K-U-R-U. It's kind of like something that you get from cannibalism. It's like beyond mad cow disease.
I see.
They're just
where your flesh actually starts to disintegrate.
Yeah.
And you have to keep up with it. Otherwise, your body's just going to fall apart.
Which is another reason why we teach kind of going into raw food, superfoods, kind of as you think vegan, but plant-based, right? Because now this is infected food supply. It's into the drug supply, the prescription supply, your chickens, your beef, your whatever. It doesn't matter. And between that, the radioactive stuff. So that's actually some of the reason
this is also part of how they're trying to normalize this stuff. And that's why they're putting dead baby bits into your food and things like that. They're covertly trying to normalize this sort of crap.
And again, this is put into the vaccines. That's what's called recombinant DNA, right? So you're basically getting it's like having oral sex with Monsanto and Gates and Rockefeller Rothschilds. And because their DNA is in there and the people that they've killed is in there. At the quantum level, you need to know what you're doing. That's why we're trying to get people with this genius biofeedback, identify what the minerals are, the viruses, the bacteria, and then see what we can do to repair people on the energetic magnetic field side.
I mean, the attacks on humanity are so multifaceted that you can't even discuss all the methods they're employing to either kill or sicken humanity in one talk show. You can't do it.
And that's part of the why, trying to get people clean or, just going to findaspring.com or where to be in a safe place. Or now that I've got a camper, my new project for the next week to gut and redo, but to get out of these cities as well, and get into safer places where we can put these kind of facilities, hopefully. And, that's why we just started this, 5G is like the icing on the cake. And, some of the people have said too, the ETs of the Galactic said if they try to fire it up worldwide, they're going to melt their entire system right down, and there are other things into place. Even if that does happen, they've got another grid stuff ready to go, and I've been told they're transferring all the stuff even off from, the moon to the other moon. They're getting ready to set up other systems already,
One of the things I can say unequivocally, there isn't going to be any nuclear war, period. Because Solly Ray Gray went around and rendered all the nuclear content and all of the missiles and bombs inert. Doesn't work. None of them. Period. No nuclear war. That was a mandate that came down from upstairs. It's not going to be allowed. So that's off the table, which is why you see more and more conventional sort of stuff going on. You're not going to see nukes because there aren't any.
But this is
we're really dealing with frequencies, densities, and frequencies.
That's why now they're going to EMP type stuff or beam weapons and things like that. Is like the church in France there that burned down. That was done deliberately. That was a ritual death because there were people and workers in that building, and that was foretold long ago, and that was done with a DEW weapon, directed energy weapon. I caught it on camera, including the spacecraft that did it.
And they voluntarily gave it up. Like, I mean, it was a ritual to them.
4 days
you know?
before, everything that the cabal wanted to keep got moved out of there.
They were.
Now,
That's the key. People don't pay
yeah.
attention to this stuff.
I happen to look at the timer here, and it says that we've been on the air for 144 minutes, and that is sort of a biblical.
I just looked too.
that's sort of a biblical number, you know, the 144,000. So I'm thinking, are there any main points?
Well, that actually pertains to the offshoot group that were created on Eden on Earth, and I know where that is. But that, again, that was another hybrid program. That wasn't actually humans.
I see. So the
whole thing the Bible is based on is a hybrid group.
Right. So
not
Adam
human.
and Eve and the Garden of Eden is really a story about a hybrid group then.
A new hybrid group, yes.
Yeah. So we're constantly being hijacked by these hybrid groups that want to come up and take us by the ear and say, "We're it. Listen to us." Is that it?
We've been on this planet for over 2 billion years.
Wow.
This ain't the first time. There's been multiple civilizations where humanity's gotten up to the point where we became a threat, and multiple groups of ETs who had doings here came and wiped it out. That's what we're not allowing anymore. That's what the Red Katrina was supposed to do again. No, not anymore. This shit's over. Not happening.
Well, I'd like to ask you then two questions. Number one, is there anything that you had wanted to say that you haven't said? That's the first question. And number two, can you give us a vision of what you think is going to happen? Those are two questions.
People are going to move from this 3D environment to 4D hospital ships, get healed, and then move to 5D, except for the ones who are adamant about having something really nasty come down. That they're going to get moved to environment. That's going to happen. Then they go in the recycle bin, and will end up being reincarnated in a 5D body and environment eventually. They're going to get what they want. But bear in mind, this is just a stage. This is the way that the non-incarnate beings put this to me. It's a play, and all the acts of the play have to play out. And that's what's going to happen.
Very
we don't control the curtain. They do. And anybody who finds out what the truth of when the curtain is going to close, they'll change it. It's that simple. I mean, half the stuff I do upstairs, they don't even let me keep in my head when I'm awake down here. I don't want anybody to know, because the cabal groups have the ability to scan people's minds and read everything in them. And that date and time and event is not going to be given out to anybody, period. Anybody who did manage to find out, that would just change the date and time anyway. They don't want the enemy having it so that they can't interfere. That's why I tell everybody, work on your own personal frequency, look inside, get your head and your frequency where it needs to be. Forget the rest of it, because it's just stage props.
Pattie,
irrelevant.
Yeah, Pattie, could you share your either things that you had wanted to say that you haven't said, and then what your vision is of what's going to happen?
I'd like to start building the enclaves, but that's me.
Yeah,
because to me, that's a learning experience that would move
that's a
other
real
people
project.
forward.
That's a real
that would move other people forward mentally and health-wise.
Well, also that's kind of paradoxical project, because that seems like that's bricks and mortar, which is very 3D.
No, you get to bring everything with you. So anything you want to bring with you, you get to bring with you. So
I see.
I mean, how I do battle down here is I create things up in 5D, pull it down here and use it. So
I see. Okay.
they won't let me do big stuff like that, though, because that looks too much like a miracle, and that gets tied into the God complex stuff, which is what we're shutting down. So none of that. That's why they wouldn't let me take out the UN, which I wanted to do. I wanted to just shred the whole place. But they said no, because that had other complications. So I get away with a lot of things off Earth that they won't let me do here.
Okay.
To play by the rules.
Pattie, would you like to share your vision?
Well, like I said, I'm down here to get
Oh.
people set up with something like this in 5D, and then I go home. I'm not sticking
I
around.
see.
I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I graduated from this level a long time ago. This
Oh,
is to get humanity set on the right track, in the right headspace, and the right
yeah.
path forward. And then I'm done. I go home.
Oh, okay. Okay. Karen, would you like to share your vision?
I think having been a direct Conti experiencer and all this kind of fun stuff now, and seeing the conflict and the suffering, what it's done to not only humanity, but the clans and the tribes, the people, the water, the whatever. We need something like this, and that's why I'm fully supporting what Pattie's designs are. We need to go into a place that's healthy and not where we're being under constant barrage of attacks. You know, these silent weapons, I don't care if it's 4G, 5G, 9G, whatever they got planned, 6G to Mars, whatever. We need to go back to some place of normalcy, to grounding, to earthing, to being with Gaia, to being in some sort of a natural environment that can put us into there. So it's a protected facility. And right now, you know, having done 30 years of medicine, nursing, quantum medicine, everything you could think, herbology, iridology, radionics, Reichs, whatever, this is going back to helping people. And we need to get our strands back into place using Solmac. And right now, my whole scramble is to be dealing with people one-on-one and doing stuff like to scan them or get this on your own phone. I mean, we have the technology to put these things on your own phone, not even need a hospital anymore. We've had this since like the 1950s, well before that. But I mean, this kind of technology, Rife and radionics, has been around in Tesla stuff forever. This is like a Tesla thing, turning all your crystals and your little Wi-Fi stuff into an actual scanner. You know, I don't need a lab tech anymore or take phlebotomy and stuff. We have those things available, and we'll get more. To me, it's about
here's where Karen and I differ, because I'm more of the opinion, get people's DNA restored back to original, then you don't need any hospitals or any medical equipment at all.
That's what I'm saying. You don't need it. And I haven't got a health card, and I haven't had a health card, driver's license, any of that straw man stuff or stuff. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's about going back to nature, which is why I'm going to be leaving out of these facilities and doing that. But the most important thing I have found that's really helpful for people for grounding, aside from all your superfoods, when you start taking stuff like essential oils, you're grounding and earthing again. When you're taking herb teas and stuff, you're grounding and earthing again. If you take anything off a tree, which has probably got the most amount of energy, whether it's a chocolate tree, a lemon tree, a grapefruit, all those things are your highest medicines. Frankincense tree, myrrh tree. I don't care if it's an oil, resin, whatever. But the other thing I've come across that's been so helpful for women and stuff like that is putting these back into where the root chakras. We've blown all these other things. It's like, this is 5G, 4G, 5D. Use it this way.
That's the point of the nuclear content.
Right.
Trees and things all bioaccumulate
right.
the radioactive content. That's
right.
to poison the real medicine.
And that's why doing stuff like this. This is a herbal tampon most people have never seen, but women can put in, and they're starting to get their periods back. They're pulling out tumors, fibroids, ectoplasm, and also nanotech out of these things called yoni or vaginal pearls. The other thing which I've done, which has been the most important, and this is about earthing and grounding. As Pattie says, We don't need the tech. You're supposed to have it here. This is not the tech. This connects to our things and amplifies. It's like a radio station that amplifies our getting our tech back. But the other thing is the nanotech. The other thing I'll just show you here is that seat, which men or women can use. And I don't care how they do a yoni steam or a vaginal steam. I've been doing this for men, women, and pets. When you actually take herbs and stuff like this, and I don't care if it's loose tea or herbs, you could look up at steamychick.com. You're actually re-energizing or remagnifying the field. And that's probably what's saving me at some level. You know, using the shaga, using that. I'm more about the medical, as in trying to raise people's energy and vibration and frequency, i.e. getting them back to natural, like getting them so that they feel galactic or cosmic.
Well, one of the reasons why that works,
101.
one of the reasons why that works is you got to understand the technology, the energy technology used by the cabal, all targets your root chakra.
Yeah. And that's why everything I'm doing is about rerouting, revirginizing, re-energizing. Everything is about going back into the mother's womb, actually. Because then you're connected to all the mothers energetically from all time and eternity when you actually don't have anything down this 40-foot pipe. So whether you're steaming to stuff, get the nanotech, frying it out, that's about frying out like nanotech. People don't get that, you know, and that you're going right into the blood system, right into the root chakra. You open up the sacrum. You're opening up the gateway. That's the stargate. You're opening up the meridians. You're draining the lymphatics, but you're frying out the nanotech. Okay?
The entire electric grid, 220, 110, 60, and 50 hertz, that is all in direct harmony with your root chakra. It was done that way deliberately from the start.
So all my high-tech stuff with the scalar and the rife and the radionics is simply about water and salt and urine almost. We're doing, you know, as people even think, urine therapy. But what you can do is do something like that, is get something. I don't care if it's a chair. I don't care if it's a stool. I don't care if it's a lawn chair that you cut out or it's a planter taken upside down with a hole in it. This is the most powerful thing for getting back your physical root chakra back. And once you clean that, you start moving up and up. I've actually had people come up 8 prescriptions. I've also had someone do, and after about your 2, 3, 4 dozen of them, I've had someone release basically like the size of a snake, like a black eel is what they said. And I think it's some of the black goo and all that kind of nanotech coming out. It just released right out after, you know, about 2, 3 dozen sessions. This is very huge because your colon is the Tesla coil. I mean, you got 2 pillars there and something that goes across. One's electrical, magnetic, and they have different minerals. Some, again, alkalis and some acidic. They're all portals. So whether it's enemas, colonics, steams are so non-invasive, anyone can do it. Doesn't cost anything. You can even do it over a toilet. But that's actually what I'm looking at doing. And to getting these facilities, that's actually what I like. And that's why when we talked with you about getting, whether you want to call it the Caring Bear Project or Enclaves or an RCAM or NOAA's, whatever we want to call it, these facilities have to be done up because we're just not going to make it. And right now, we need to heal after what I've seen.
Putin has got somebody to design one. Of course, the design they came up with ain't going to work.
Yeah, those are the kinds that they do. They already know this. This is the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's Area 51, it's Putin's one, it's all the designs. They've got flaws from what I've looked at.
Yeah, the Earthship too, where they went in supposedly supposed to stay there for a couple of years and everything, and they almost died because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And
they ran out of oxygen.
People need to realize how important this is. When I came back through Banff, going through Cypress Hills, and as I said, going past Area 51, which is CFB Suffield, which is about 4 or 5 hours out of Saskatoon by Medicine Hat, when they took over Carmela's car, they took over the remote control of it. They put all the flashers off, took over her cruise control. She put her foot on the floor pedal, the gas pedal, to the floor, guys, and that car wouldn't move. They had total control. All she could do was actually just use the steering wheel, just like we were in like Disneyland, like, you know, or at the local fair. They took the car over, and they've done that. I've seen them where, you know, they've taken computers. They don't even have to be plugged in or with batteries, and they can remote do it through ET, remote military access. People need to realize this is like true. It happens. And I don't want anyone else to sustain this. I don't care who I've actually ticked off in this process of having to get the truth out, protect the children, protect the water. I'm about, you know, getting back people into a natural state of natural law, whether you call it cosmic or galactic, call it whatever you want, but the clan or the tribal law, and protect that. Because it's not about this abnormality and you know, doing the vaccines, the GMOs, and this is totally abnormal. Now they're trying to make all the transgenderization and stuff too, of that you won't be able to produce. I mean, how many children now? And they're so ET. So if the grid goes down and this kind of stuff is what's needed, at least for the sanctity not only of ourselves but our children, Alfred. I mean, our children are so bombarded, they don't even think properly anymore. This is a generation that's become half AI anyway. My gosh, their biggest nightmare is thinking the Wi-Fi is going to go down.
Common Core in schools. I mean, it gets as basic as this. You know, the Common Core, no child left behind, and all that. Well, Common Core is a deliberate brain damage of children, designed by the Nazis and done on the folks of Poland during World War II. It's a war crime.
Yeah. But
bear in mind, the entire educational community is run by agents of the deep state cabal and more importantly, the covens.
So I think what we need to get is the protective area for the children, if nothing else for the children. The children deserve this. They've got to have a future where, you know, we can actually procreate and co-create. To me, this is about a state of coming in, and it could be some of my most exciting times. I don't know. I've discovered more things and more things in medicine. Like I said, even using this, and Pattie's right, but right now we got to use what we got. With Ryan Williams and what I've done with Dr. Ariel Policano, I've taken power plays. I have taken the tick samples here in Saskatoon, and I've already seen people reversing Lyme. And this will have a bearing on cancer and vaccines as well, because this is the basis to what they put into that stuff. This is the poisons they do. And if I have to use this kind of technology temporarily, and I know it's not the most exciting or best thing, and it's not to Pattie's standards, and it's not what we should have, but that's all I've got in my hands, and that's something we can get into the general populations. You know, we can make PowerPoints and stuff too. And if we can't identify if someone's missing a mineral or a vitamin, I got a blockage in there, there isn't going to be any, you know, moving up for these people, which doesn't have to be.
I mean, Alfred, I don't know if you'd have the time to do it, but I really think somebody should get on the Common Core war crime issue, if only to stop the brain damage to the children.
Well, the thing is this, is that we're walking that fine line, and those were the questions that I was asking you.
That's already a pre-established war crime.
No. But as soon as you say war crime, well, then you're bringing it into their system, you see. Now, and we didn't get much time today to talk about how the International Criminal Court statute was designed as a decentralized statute. So we have over 118 nations that have signed and ratified it. So you can they have universal jurisdiction, which means that the national courts of 118 nations have universal jurisdiction over war crimes that occur anywhere on this planet, and you can try.
One issue.
I'm sorry?
There is an issue. When Obama was in office, all access to the World Court from the United States was cut off, and it's never been restored.
No. Well, we will leave that for another program, okay?
So the public has no way to file anything with them because they have no access to them. And that hasn't been restored even with Trump being put in.
That is not correct.
Other than going there.
American citizens can come either to the courts of Spain or the courts of Canada or the courts of Great Britain and file lawsuits against war crimes that have been committed that violate the International Criminal Court statute, and they can do it in the courts of 118 nations. That is one of the features of the.
But I think the United States should be one of them. They can do it from within, but they can't.
No. But that's a legal fiction that 5 nations namely the United States, Israel, China, Russia, and Iran. And that's a legal scam that those 5 nations are
Yep.
trying to pull off.
Yep.
We have to leave the program at this exciting way, but we want to invite you back from time to time so that we can track this in 2020, in 2021,
I don't think
2020.
we're not going to still be here around then.
Oh,
Anything
okay.
we can't get done immediately, in a reasonably short period of time is going to be a moot point.
No. As 5D lands, we're going to be reporting from 5D. That's the whole point. Okay, then. Thank you very much for being here. As we report from 5D, folks, this is wonderful from this altitude. We've been with Pattie Brassard, one of the true heroes of our time, klanmother Karen Lucyk MacDonald. Thank you, Karen, for everything you do.
You're welcome.
This is Alfred Lammermont Weber with Exopolitics TV and NEWSINSIDEOUT.com. Thank you, and we look forward to our next program with you. Thank you.
And keep your energy high.
Placebo.